A number of years ago, I got a chance to work with the Green Bay Packers, and it came about because I knew one of their coaches. I was lecturing in Appleton, Wisconsin. He said, why don't you swing by Lambeau Field and work on some of the coaches, and if we get a good response, maybe we can get the head coach to approve you. Well, they had a good response. A lot of their arthritic symptoms in these three coaches were much improved overnight. Excuse me. They went to the head coach and said, this is what happened. And he said, okay, he's for real, get him. Since then, I've worked with over 60 pro football players and over 15 coaches now who are spread out, I think, on 14 different teams. The thing I like about spiritual healing, it's not just working with coaches with high blood pressure and depression and heart problems or breathing problems. With the athletes, the healing can be measured. So a good 1/3 of the players are 1/10 of a second faster in the 40. We can measure their strength as in the gym with their lifting. You know what their best lifts are? You do some healing, you recheck them, the best lifts are better. So what's wonderful about working with these famous athletes, it's very exact in what they can do. You do the healing and we see a measured improvement. And I think this opens the door for other people who have trouble believing. When we can get documentation, whether it's an MRI changing, an X-ray changing, blood work changing, or strength or speed of an athlete changing that can be documented, then people start opening up more and more. So yeah, I've been very excited about working with athletes because I've been a bodybuilder since age 10. The healing work I do today started with a dream in 1980. In the dream, I came out of a church, and there was a gate with a lock on it. I made the sign of the cross and said, in the name of the Christ, and the lock opened. And then a voice said, look at that, we have Christ in our midst. And I said, no, I'm no one. I'm here to help him manifest the Christ. That was an interesting dream. I didn't know what to do with it. A few months later, I'm at an ARE symposium in Phoenix, and we're discussing dreams. I mentioned this dream, and a woman says, well, you're a chiropractor. Why don't you make the sign of the cross over someone's spine and see what will happen? So what did I say? I said, well, that's just a dream. Nothing's going to happen. She said, humor me. Well, 95 out of 100 people, when their spine has misalignment, they lay face down with their shoes on, one leg is going to be shorter. 95 out of 100 people, when the spine is put back in place, the legs become even. So I checked the person's spine, checked their leg length, made the sign of the cross and said, in the name of the Christ, and their spine leaped into place. Needless to say, that got my attention. But I was in a private practice in Louisiana at the time, and I thought, I'm not going to tell this to anybody. So I figured I'd lose all my credibility. So the spiritual healing initially was just a hobby. I never thought it would be anything more than a hobby. But dreams kept on giving me guidance, saying, the more that is given, the more that will be expected. And gradually, the inner response of what I felt I needed to do became so great that I gave up my clinic and started doing the healing full time. Once I made the decision to do the healing full time, the dramatic healings dramatically increased. Of course, over the years, what I realized is if you're a spiritual healer, God's doing the work. It's not me. I don't know how to do these things. Somehow I shift into an altered state of consciousness and God takes over. Clairvoyants who watch said they see this golden light coming out of my hands and it surrounds the person's body. When I look at people, I don't see problems. All I sense are energy fields. So cancer is not cancer. It's just a manifestation in a certain area. The energy fields may be that organ, that gland, the blood, the chemistry, the immune system. These energy fields are not fully charged. And I just ask, what can I do with which energy system? And I let Spirit work through me to recharge those systems. You know, and people said, well, how do you feel so motivated to do these lectures and healings 365 days a year, coast to coast? I think the world is super thirsty for an experience of God. There are thousands of people out there who do energy techniques. Some of them are spiritual healers, a lot of them aren't. I think people deserve an authentic experience of God. And when I see so many of the dramatic responses, I want them to have an authentic experience. A lot of times it's very dramatic, and a dramatic experience helps people open up more to God and open up to one another. So, I mean, just like this last 6 months, I had 2 cases of cancer, no, actually 3, that it was diagnosed. They had a clinical data of it. They did some healing over the phone with me, and then they went and they found out the cancer's not there. Just last month, a lady called for healing. She said she had an inflamed heart, not inflamed, enlarged heart with leaky valves. And she was afraid to go back because of what the doctor might tell her she had to do. She had some healing. She felt calmer. She went back. She said the doctor said it was a miracle. The heart was perfectly normal. I want to make these experiences available to everybody. And that's one reason why I check my messages 365 days a year. When someone calls and said, oh, it's Christmas Eve, and I probably want to hear from you, an hour or 2 later I call them back and say, well, to me, every day's Christmas. I don't mind.